Crowd scene.
Imagine a movie that includes every day of the rest of your life. What will you choose to remember? Director and entrepreneur Cesar Kuriyama remembers what he's been doing every day for the last 5 years. And that's thanks to the app he created called 1 Second Every Day. On this episode of Crowd Scene, Cesar will explain how it works, how he was selected to do a TED Talk that's been viewed over 1 million times, and how that led to a massively successful Kickstarter and his work being featured recently in a hit film. And it all started with quitting his job. You can find out more information about this episode and all of our guests on crowdsceneshow.com. Here's Cesar.
There's always time to do something that will bring a little meaning to the day. It doesn't have to be going on some adventure. It could really just be something that you've been meaning to do for a while and, just haven't been making the time. And all of a sudden, you realize today's been a busy work day. And so, hey, let's make today count.
Crowd scene. Gonna kick it with Pete and Mike. Crowd scene. Interviews behind the hype. Crowd scene.
Hi there.
Hello.
Welcome to Crowd Scene, the show about successful crowdfunding campaigns and the people who make them happen. I'm Michael Ogden.
And I'm Peter Dean.
In each episode of Crowd Scene, we speak with people who've taken a risk by turning an idea of theirs into reality by raising money on a crowdfunding platform. But what did it take to reach their goal? I like to hear the story behind the idea and discover what it meant for them to find success.
And I'm interested in how you design and plan a successful campaign, as well as what our guests have learned along the way. We'll talk about some of the factors that can make or break a campaign.
In this episode, we're excited to be joined from New York by Cesar Kuriyama, TED Talk speaker and creator of the 1 Second Everyday app, an idea that has spread far and wide since he crowdfunded it in 2012. So much so, Cesar's app made a pivotal appearance in Jon Favreau's indie film hit Chef.
Cesar's Kickstarter campaign was extremely successful. The project attracted a huge amount of media attention, and more than 11,000 backers who shared his passion for the project raised close to $60,000 between them. So let's find out how he did it.
Cesar will be sharing his insights throughout the show, but first, let's hear his story. Cesar Kuriyama, welcome to Crowd Scene.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here.
A big congratulations to you on the successful campaign. That was in 2012, is that right?
Yes, we were funded on November 27th of 2012.
You crowdfunded this in 2012, and does that seem like a long time ago? Or given that what your app does to record memories, is it easy for you to recall that time in your life?
Oh yeah. It's one of the most powerful parts about the project. I mean, I'm about to hit 5 years doing 1 Second Every Day for myself. It's almost a 30-minute video that's just every single day of my life for the past 5 years. And I can contextualize like the passage of time in a way that I never could have imagined possible. So it's till this day it's having like a really powerful effect on me. It's
an incredible and personal project. I mean, let's set the scene, Cesar. How would you describe 1 Second Every Day?
1 Second Every Day is started out as just kind of a personal project where I was trying to essentially hack my memory and not forget a day of my life ever again. Because I had this lifelong frustration with how I would forget the days of my past. And friends would say, "Hey, remember the time we did this?" And I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And I learned a lot about the science of memory and such. And it really doesn't take that much. You just kind of need a memory trigger. And my background was in animation and video and film, so I knew that a second was actually a substantial amount of time compared to say a photo. I wanted to be able to listen to a moment. I think that's half the power of reliving a moment, and the subtle movements that can be captured with a video that just like a photograph just can't really do.
So what does the app allow you to do?
The app allows you to make a video that captures 1 second of your life per day at least, and stitches it together so that you're basically making an ongoing film of every day of the rest of your life.
And was there a particular conversation with a friend that sparked the idea, or a particular day?
What happened was I wanted to leave my job in working in advertising. I'd been working in advertising for 5-6 years, and I wasn't creatively fulfilled in any way. The initial, hey, look, that thing I worked on is on TV, like kind of wore off, and all of a sudden it was just like, I want to be doing other things. And I had like directed this music video that did really well, and got like 1 million views, and it was like on Wired. And I thought, you know what, I really want to spend my time doing my own ideas and not someone else's. And so I saw this TED Talk by Stefan Sagmeister, who was an alumni of my school, Pratt Institute, and he talked about the power of time off. And in his talk, he convinced me that what I needed to do was not to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, but what I needed to do was to buy myself time to have the mental space to actually think about, ideas and stuff like that. So I spent 2 years just living very frugally and saving half of my paycheck and putting it into an account that I didn't touch. And then I quit my job on my 30th birthday so I could take a year off. I basically bought myself just enough time so I could take a year off from work. And then leading up to that, I thought, well, I can barely remember the day-to-day life that I had when I was 20. I don't want to turn 40 one day and just kind of vaguely remember my magical year off. So I thought, well, I know that a second is a substantial amount of time, and so I also want to make whatever I make to be absorbable and quick to revisit. Whereas like a hard drive full of photos and videos that no one ever has the time to go look at just didn't seem like something that like I wanted to do. I thought, well, if I record 1 second per day, that's really easy to do, so I won't stop doing it. And I'll have at the end of the year, I'll have this 6-minute video that kind of encapsulates, every day of my year.
Can I ask you, Cesar, during that time when you were thinking, you bought yourself some time to think, what did you put pressure on yourself to think about career choices or how you're going to make money and survive, or were you really trying to chase passion projects?
I did a couple of projects during that year off that were things that I've always just wanted to be. I started volunteering my time with like organizations that I've always been fond of, and just trying to do all these things that I've never. I went on this like 95-day road trip because there was one of those things where like I'll never be able to acquire enough vacation time working at a full-time job to go out and just travel around the U.S. And so. The side project, like I had a piece of my RAM in my brain that said maybe there's something you can figure out during this year off, during this time, that will allow you to not have to come back to the same life at the end of the year. And so I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself, I would say, but it was in the back of my mind, like maybe there's something here, something I can figure out. And I played around with a lot of ideas, going back to school to study some other stuff that I was passionate about. I left my options open essentially, but especially on the road trip, what kept coming up a lot as I was like nearing months and months of doing this project was this is having such a positive effect on my day-to-day life, and it's such a simple thing to do, and it's making me very mindful of the day-to-day. Maybe this is something that, with my background in video, it's really easy for me to edit this together in Final Cut Pro or a piece of editing software, but it's not going to be easy for anyone else to do this, on their phone so slowly but surely, I just kind of it just made more and more sense to try to make an app that made this easy for anyone.
How long would you say after you'd started recording 1 second of your life every day? After how many days did you start feeling a positive effect? Because recording just 1 second every day, after 2 weeks, that's still only 14 seconds of footage. Yeah. Was that enough to kind of start reminiscing and to think, hey, this is so good, I want to keep on doing it?
It was right away. It was actually about what you just said, which I think it was like the 2-week mark. If you see my original video, my original TED Talk, you'll see a couple of early seconds where I'm just like in front of a computer. Yeah. I'm like, I'm on Facebook, or I'm watching like True Lies for like the 50th time in my life or something. And in some respects, I was also just kind of winding down from like, I had just, the last thing that I did at my job was like this, really very difficult, like 6-week project where I didn't sleep or have free time to myself at all. Like the 6 weeks prior to the first second where I started recording is basically just me at work, and so in some respects I was just kind of like relaxing, but at the same time it made me very conscious of the fact that like the only notable thing I have to say that I did today was that I just sat here and like watched movies and TV, and then like it really made me sit back and think, what can I do tomorrow to make it notable and not have this repeat again? What
is your criteria for selecting those moments?
I don't really have a criteria. I just kind of go with a gut feeling. I learned early on as well that it doesn't really matter what moment I choose, because the fact that the video is playing chronologically, 1 second per day, makes it very easy to kind of fill in the blanks in between. Even if I pick a specific moment from today, or I pick a specific moment from tomorrow, the gaps kind of fill themselves in when you're kind of watching it play back, or at least I find that that's what's happening for me. So just because I don't pick a specific moment over another, it doesn't mean that I forget that moment.
And do you select those moments at the end of every day, or are you thinking, okay, this is going to be my notable moment of my day, so I'm going to start recording now?
No, yeah. So one of the things that, when I was when I was kind of thinking this up for how I wanted it to work for me as my own little personal video journal diary, was I wanted to be able to not have homework. I didn't want a chore. The second it becomes a chore, it's the second that I'm not having fun with it, or I stop doing it. So I made a conscious decision to make sure that I wouldn't put any pressure on myself to figure that out like on the spot. I record my seconds. I record once, maybe twice, three. If it's a really great day, I might record 4 times or something. But I'll choose them every 2 or 3 weeks.
Does the knowledge that you will be recording 1 second of your life every day help in decision making? Does it prompt you to do things that you wouldn't perhaps have ordinarily done?
Yes, I call it a side effect. It's one of the side effects of doing this is that it comes directly from that first feeling 2 weeks into the project, where I realized, wow, I'm very mindful of how I'm spending my time today because I have to record something. And so, I find myself siding with doing something as opposed to making an excuse for not doing it far more often in the past 5 years, where I want to make sure that even if it could be something very simple, sometimes I'll just call an old friend or something, and that if I had a really busy day at work, there's always time to do something that will bring a little meaning to the day. It doesn't have to be going on some adventure. It could really just be something that you've been meaning to do for a while, and just haven't been making the time, and all of a sudden you realize today's been a busy work day, and so hey, let's make today count.
Well, so much of what's powerful about your project, Cesar, is about memory. I'm curious, people talk about how it's important to live in the present. I mean, why for you is it important to look to the past?
I think there's always that, there's that, famous quote about, you kind of have to know where you've been to know where you're going, something along those lines. And I find that to be very true, at least for me. I think that, if I was to watch the first 2 or 3 years of the project at this point, I when I see it, it's such a personal project, right? And so when you see my 1 second every day video, you're like, oh wow, he's at this place and he's at that place, and that must be a friend of his. There's not a whole lot of context for you for what you're watching, right? Like when you're just watching my video, but for me, it's everything is. This is this is my life, when I see it, it brings me back to who I was at the time. Yeah, I can feel the evolution or whatever of myself. I was a totally different person 5 years ago. I was still working through a lot of stuff, and I was I was definitely coming off of that frustration of years of really not being able to live the life that I was I was quarter life crisis kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting, Cesar, about your TED Talk was simply the fact that you decided to share your 1 second every day of the last year or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was the year.
You were. I mean, it's a very personal video, and of course, we don't know any of your friends or family, and yet watching it, I felt somehow nostalgic about my own life. It was a little bit of, I suppose, what you would call fear of missing out, looking at someone else's interesting life, and thinking, well, if I was making a movie of my own life, would it be 1 second every day in the office every single day? And it does, I can very easily see how recording a second every day ends up being a virtuous circle.
But it's also strangely compelling. I mean, I think, it is obviously your life, Cesar, that, we're watching, but I still found it entertaining.
Yes.
Or moving.
Yeah, there was a famous comedian guy who did a 1 second every day, and he posted his video, and it did, it ended up on a bunch of websites like BuzzFeed and stuff. And I remember the quote that kind of stuck that he said about it that I've thought about ever since. He said, like if you only have to select 1 second of video per day, you can make anybody's life look really interesting.
Yeah.
And I found that to be, relatively true. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't do my video for the sake of like, hey, look at me. I mean, I actually haven't shared my video from the past year and a half yet. And I've kind of reached the point where, like I shared out the first 2 and 3 years, I think, because my desire to try to push the idea forward, and try to convince people that this is a worthwhile thing for them to do personally. Especially in the last year, there's been a lot of difficult moments in my life, and I don't when I'm recording, I'm trying to be very genuine to myself and not necessarily to what I care other people to see about it.
Well, I imagine if you knew that you were sharing your personal year, that you would maybe sometimes feel a sense of that you'd want to censor yourself.
Absolutely. There was a second, I believe, in the second year that is online, and I call these I personally call these secret codes, which is that I recorded something. I've been doing this for a while, but there was one in particular. But I'll record something that is enough information for me to remember what the moment it is that I'm trying to remember, even though the video in itself looks like doesn't look like much. And so in the first year, for example, there's a very boring second where it's just like the side of a wall. I mean, it's but I recorded that after I had a very important, meaningful conversation with a loved one. And so to anyone else, that looks like nothing, but to me, it's like one of the most important seconds of that video. And in that same regard, in the second year video, I recorded something that was very hurtful to me, like an email or something. And I recorded that as my second of the day. But then when it came time to share it, I thought, man, I can't put that dirty laundry out there. I don't want people hating on this person, because I'm basically outing what they said to me and stuff, and so I just recorded something else that would remind me of that. Without really putting that out there. And so I'm often torn by these decisions and what is it that I should be sharing or what I shouldn't be sharing. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to do something that's going to be impactful for me and how I look back. But yeah, I mean, these are questions I ponder, and I'm not sure if I'm making the right decisions, but I certainly enjoy figuring them out.
And given that you are the 1 second everyday guy, do you find that your friends and family compete amongst each other to make an appearance in your life story? They're like, hey, Cesar, look at this.
Yeah.
Well, there's a combination of those. I find a lot of people don't want to, like, not a lot. Some people are shy away from it. They don't, if they see me pull out my camera, they're like, no. And so there's that. More often than not, I try to capture little candid moments. I cherish kind of like the more like in the moment, when they're not even looking kind of capture compared to the, hey, I'm posing for the camera thing. But one thing that I didn't really quite think about until the first year of the video, kind of went online was how positively they felt that they were included in it. And by no means was I trying to exclude anyone. And so it wasn't something that I was consciously thinking about, but I got a lot of, messages and emails about, what it meant to them to see them be a part of my life. It has an impact on my friends and family.
Cesar, your background is as a creative, as an animator, and your time in advertising. I'm just curious, and also you mentioned in you're obsessed with ideas that don't exist yet but should, which is a great line. I mean, where are you when you come up with most of your ideas? Do you have a particular discipline about generating new projects?
My school of thought on the kind of coming up with ideas, creativity thing is that, the more you just go out and live, that the more the ideas kind of just show up. There is no there is no system or anything for me. I certainly someday hope to kind of get 1 second every day to a place where I can, feel that it is what I mean for it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can move on to other, projects. I have an endless amount of Evernotes of ideas and things that I want to film and shoot or make with my own hands. But I think like a good writer needs to go out and actually live and experience. And I think that coming up with ideas kind of is very, very much about that. One of the most fortunate parts about getting to speak at the TED conference is actually being in that conference for a week. You hear ideas from every conceivable discipline and disciplines you didn't even know existed. And I'm a big believer that the more you kind of learn about everything, the more that it all just starts connecting, and the more possibilities that there are for you to come up with something that you may have never even considered possible before.
Your experience with TED Talks, of course, is a pretty significant one, I imagine, and I know it was a big goal of yours. You reached that via an audition process, and it was a great pitch I saw. It's a 60-second pitch if anyone wants to see it online of you auditioning for TED Talk.
Oh, please don't watch that.
Don't.
60 seconds great. That you'd rather not
it's
have.
Shot in your closet, and it's very human. Did you, when you were selected, did you work with the TED Talks team to work out your story? I mean, I'm curious about what the behind-the-scenes process is in developing a TED Talk.
Sure. The quick story behind how that all happened was that they, for the first time, they were having the first ever TED auditions, and this was this was in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And at the time, this was back when like if you liked something on Facebook, you would actually see everything that they they would post.
Good times.
Yeah, good times. Anyways, they posted that they were having the first ever TED auditions, and I kind of clicked on it, and I thought, man, like that's amazing. I wish I had an idea worth spreading. Oh well, moving on. But I kept the tab like on my browser, there. And every now and then I would just see it there, and I'd be like, man, so awesome. Damn, what an opportunity. And then it wasn't until like maybe a week and a half later when I was recording, I think my second of the day at my dad's birthday or something, that I thought, wow, maybe this thing that I'm doing for myself that I've only been doing for like 2 months is an idea worth spreading. I don't know. And I just kind of decided, well, if I don't at least try, I'll regret it. For the rest of my life. And so I literally ran home. I recorded myself doing this I did it about 30 times. I think that's the best one. And it's still pretty shaky. Luckily, I get to cut to the video, so you don't even, I think that helped a bit. And I got it through with like literally 1 minute left in the submission. It was like uploading to YouTube, and I was like freaking out, and I was having a heart attack. And I finally got it submitted in time. And, like 2 weeks later, they emailed me saying, "Hey, we've chosen you and 16 others to give a slightly longer version of your talk. We're going to give you 3 minutes to do your thing on a stage here in New York in front of an audience full of people who go to the TED conference." And I said, "Okay." And so I thought that that was it. That was like that was my TED Talk. That was going to be like the once in a lifetime. All right, I got a little TED sign behind me, and I'll get the last profile picture I'll ever need. And I had stage fright. I couldn't really remember what I wanted to say. I came up with this rule, and during rehearsals, I said 2 sentences, and I just freaked out, and I couldn't remember a single thing that I needed to say after that. So I before the actual talk, I just came up with this rule that no matter what happens, I should just keep talking out from my heart, even though I'm not remembering what I meant to say.
Yes.
And no one should know. No one. Hopefully, no one will know that I'm winging it.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening. 3 sentences in, I forgot everything I wanted to say, and I just started like blabbing, and I said a lot of stuff that I didn't mean to say, but I walked off stage. I was mortified. I thought I did terrible. I thought, oh well, at least I got that profile photo. And like 3 weeks later, they wanted to have a phone call. I said okay, and they said, "We'd like you to come and do your full talk at the conference in 8 months, and you have to keep it a secret for 7 months." And, I said, "Okay, great." And so that's kind of how the process of landing. That's four of us from that night ended up going to the conference, and in the lead up to that talk, there was one session where they did just like have a speaking coach kind of just talk to a lot of speakers who wanted help, like over a Skype call. But outside of that, and then a talk of, and then there was also a talk with Chris Anderson, the curator of TED, where I just kind of told him what I was going to say and stuff like that, and he just lent some advice and gave some opinions on what he thought I should focus on and this and that.
Was there a particular piece of advice that resonated with you?
At the time he hadn't seen the video, which was interesting. He had only seen the first 2 months, which is what I showed at the audition. And so at the time there was a lot going on with my family that he wasn't aware of, that I couldn't really, convey to him until he kind of saw it. But every piece of advice that he gave was fantastic and calmed my nerves a bit, in that, like, there's just so much inherent pressure with giving a TED talk that I think he was really good at making me feel like I should just go up there and be myself. And
did you approach that second talk any differently because you felt you had you didn't feel successful on the first go around?
Right. So for the talk I had 8 minutes, and which is a lifetime if you're up there. And you know what? The funny thing about 1 second every day is that it's me trying to hack my memory. I've always had a problem with memorizing anything, like if just, like, especially if it's abstract, like if it's art history, it's an art history test in college. Like I can like the visuals help me remember things, but my entire life, just memorizing facts and numbers and stuff like that is just something I've never been good at. And so I ended up, I practiced my talk, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, leading up to that. I was the 63rd out of 65 talks that week. I was like, it was the last session, third to last talk. And so I spent the entire week, like I couldn't eat, like I was nauseous. I didn't really get to party with like all these like famous people and famous intellectuals that I wanted to hang out with and talk to, because I was in my hotel room trying to practice over and over and over again. And then I went up on stage, and the exact same thing happened to me. I went about 4 sentences deep, I think.
You doubled it. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's getting better. The fact that it's improving is the important part. And I knew going in that might happen in the moment, and it did. But I think I had, because I had been doing it for a year, because I had been. There were a lot of thoughts in my head that are clearly maybe not something I meant to say, but clearly something that I felt strongly about, which at the end of the day, I hate my TED Talk too. I think I did it.
I thought it was a good TED Talk, and if you hadn't told me any of that, I would never have guessed that you'd fluffed your lines and forgotten everything you meant to say.
Yeah, I'm really hard on myself, guys.
I think what you said before about just if I can't think of anything to say, just keep talking and talk from the heart. I think that's superb advice, and it clearly worked in your case.
Let's talk crowdfunding.
Yeah. How did the success of the TED Talk segue into crowdfunding? So,
the TED Talk happened literally 7 days after I finished my first year. And that was like what I showed on stage with the first year. And so when you see me on stage showing that video, like it ends 7 days before that. Before I was up on that stage. And if you watch year 2, like the first 7 seconds are basically me at the TED conference waiting for going through rehearsals and all that stuff. And at that point, my year off was over as of 7 as of 7 days before that. And I actually did go back to work for 1 day. I was just sitting there like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this again. I'm right back where I started. And at that point, the idea of making an app had solidified. It was just like figuring out how in blazes, I was out of money, how in blazes I'm going to make this happen. And so I just started freelancing. I did like a very lucrative, I directed a bunch of videos. It was lucrative enough where I could continue to be super frugal, and it gave me just enough. I was able to take just enough money to be able to build a prototype of the app. And it was, it took a long process of time to find a development team that was, that was passionate about it as much as I was, and they wanted to be a part of it. And that's more important than just a couple of guys who are like, yeah, pay me and I'll do whatever you want. And yeah, I kind of decided, at the time I was a giant Kickstarter nerd because I love ideas, and Kickstarter is basically a place where people are throwing ideas, and it's just, I was just fascinated with the platform, and I thought, this is the perfect place, I think, for me to try to get the rest of the money that I need to actually finish this app. It just kind of came together like that, and it took months and months and months to put the Kickstarter together. I studied every Kickstarter I could find that was remotely in some way connected to mine, or just to see how people were doing their stories, or how people were doing their reward tiers, which is a very, very difficult thing to figure out. And
over those months and months, Cesar, I mean, was it kind of a campaign? Were you working up your mailing list, or were there things that you felt, looking back, were the most effective things that you could do, or you might recommend before you went live with your campaign?
I mean, I had this whiteboard where I would lay out my launch strategy. It was just what I called it, and it took a while to put. Basically, I would just add to it every time I had an idea. But essentially, it was I pre-wrote a lot of emails to a lot of friends that I thought they would be, and I didn't do a mass email. I had like some basic information about the campaign and stuff that I would copy and paste, but for the most part, I decided that the way that I wanted to do it was, and it was going to take a lot of time, and so it took a while. Was I was going to use this as an opportunity to reconnect with people that maybe I haven't connected with in a while. And I didn't want to do it in a way where like I'm basically just asking them for money or for their help on the campaign. I would just use the basically just message them and send a personal message out to them, and then at the end just basically say, and by the way, if you're curious, this is like something I launched today, for example.
Right.
And without any pressure whatsoever on it. And I pre-wrote a lot of those, like a ton of those. And I just kept them all in an Evernote, and on launch day I just copied and pasted those over to their respective email addresses, like at the same time, one at a time. And so that was one thing that I kind of had on my to-do. Another thing that I had I didn't even get to a lot of the things that I had on my launch strategy, because things took off fairly quickly on their own, and I had a hard time even keeping up with what was coming in, press-wise and stuff. But for example, my Vimeo video of 1 second every day, which is where I initially posted it, had 1,000 likes or something, and I was going to hire like a TaskRabbit or someone on Craigslist or something to basically just message out every person who liked it, saying, hey, there's an app that can do this now. And that never became necessary because it didn't. It was going to be an arduous process.
How did the press come? I mean, did you put together a press package and reach out, or did they find you?
No, I didn't. I had a list of about 50 blogs. I didn't put a press package together, is what I mean. I had a list of about 50 blogs that in leading up to the launch day, I slowly pieced together who I thought would be good for me to reach out to as far as press. And I think I only wrote the first 10 or so for the first 10 or so blogs, and I just kind of linked to it, and I didn't say much. I just kind of said, hey, spoke at the TED conference about this idea. Here's the video. It went viral. Here I'm launching an app that'll help anybody do the same, something along those lines. And so yeah, I did send out about 10 of those to specific outlets, and that once it hits a couple of those, it kind of takes care of itself, So I was very fortunate in that the initial, I basically used the same video on my Kickstarter campaign that I used, when the initial video went viral. I kind of lucked out in that sense.
Was there ever a moment either before the campaign or during the campaign where you were worried that you might not make it?
Luckily not. I think on the day before I launched, I posted something, alluding to the fact that tomorrow was, a big day, and I was hoping for my friend's support. And I think we got our first like 5,000 just like in the first hour or two.
Wow.
From that initial blast, and part of that came from, and then I think we jumped to 7,000 quickly too, because a friend of mine, a former boss of mine, he nabbed the $1,500, the one only $1,500 tier, which was like, I'll fly to wherever you are, and you know, we'll
Oh, that's
you know,
cool.
Wait, so you got to hang out with your former boss?
yes,
Is that a
he's an
win-win
amazing
for
guy.
everybody? Okay, all right.
But it was a really beautiful gesture on his part to you know, basically say, hey man, you know, I'm happy to support your passion project. And
In retrospect, do you wish you'd put more higher value tiers on your rewards?
I think in retrospect, I think some of the decisions that I made there were excellent, and some of the decisions that I made there were regretful.
Okay, got to give us some examples of each, I think.
Yeah, sure. So I think my higher tiers worked out well. I never imagined that we would sell out, quote unquote, of the $250 tier to get the beta immediately. I thought that was like, no, who's gonna bite on that? You know, like really, like, and spectacular things came out of that. The $250, one of the people who pledged on the $250 tier was an animator at Disney, and you know, he reached out and he said, hey, I just pledged, you know, $250, and I was an animator, and so we you know, we connected on that, and he ended up showing his 1 second every day to John Lasseter, who he was using 1 second every day to record what he was eating every night as a means of kind of like keeping himself accountable for what he was putting in his body, and which I thought was an excellent idea.
Yeah.
And he showed his video to John Lasseter, who runs Disney and Pixar, and he was one of hundreds and hundreds of animators who pitched ideas for animated shorts, and he ended up getting it. And so he built it. He directed an animated short called Feast, which is a very 1SC in 1 second every day-ish, in that it takes place over a substantial amount of time, but it's really focused on food and the journey of this dog. And it won the Oscar this year for best animated short.
Wow.
And that was the right, like, if you like that video that he shows when he talks about the origins of the animated short are a version of 1 second every day that like very like basically like a dozen people have had because he was one of our original backers. It was just it's been amazing just to follow his journey, and now he's going to direct a feature film, and it's like, oh my god.
What an amazing result.
And so the ones that I feel regretful about, so like the higher tiers I think worked out great. I took a gamble and they worked out. I do regret, maybe not anymore, but for a long time I kind of regretted that I just decided to charge $1 for the app, essentially. Like I said, you know, you give $1, we'll get you the app. And the idea there for me was, well, I just want people to have this, you know. That was my goal was to, you know, hope that people could do this too. I wasn't trying to turn this into a business or anything. And I knew that I wanted to charge $1 for it on the App Store. So I thought, well, why would I charge them more to make this happen and then charge them less if they would have just waited until it was on the App Store? It just didn't seem right to me. So I thought, well, I'll charge $1. And you know, we got like, I think that tier alone has like 8,000 backers or something. And while that I don't like the only reason I regret that is because you know, I learned the hard way that maintaining an app is very difficult and very costly. And you know, every time an iPhone has a new version, or there's a new iOS, or there's this new thing and there's like a bug and we got to fix that because now people are using videos that come from here instead of there. And that in the iPhone space alone is difficult to manage. But then when we also built it for Android because we went over, like, it would have been great to have charged just a little bit more for the app, just to at least the first year was a little shaky with trying to maintain the app with the amount of resources that we had.
You had to remain living frugally.
Yes, very much, very much. And then I saw all these other campaigns, that were also apps, and they were, I think there was one app that was charging like $8 for the app, and they got way less backers, but way more money. And I thought, man, I wish I would have done that. Maybe, plus at the same time, there's, the amount of email and messages that I got through the Kickstarter system from those 11,000 backers. My life became just replying to email. Once we launched the campaign, which again, I'm insanely grateful for. And we're still connected with that community. And I can literally send them all an email right now through Kickstarter, which was a powerful thing. And I never use it unless I absolutely have to. But
is there a part of you, with your background in animation, when you say, a lot of your time spent replying to emails or building an app, that you feel like you've had to make some sacrifices over the past few years that you didn't expect to make, and perhaps you miss doing certain things because of this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's, I think, like, for example, right now, I'd really like to get my foot in the VR space. It's like the wild west of VR is happening, and I'm like massively excited about the possibilities of what you could do with storytelling in a.
We should talk about that after the show, Cesar. I do some of that when we're not doing the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. And so there is an element of me that has. Looks at my long list of things that I want to spend my time on doing creatively that I don't have time for. But it's really just kind of like an itch more than anything. I think right now I'm massively excited about a lot of the stuff we're working on. We've been building on 1 Second Every Day that we'll be launching in the next couple of months. Some of it, in November. I'm really, really excited for what we're doing. And so part of me, I'm always going to, no matter what I'm working on, I'm always going to have a desire to also be doing and playing in other stuff. So it's just, it's something I've just learned to live with.
Do you feel like people share more personal stories with you as a result of this project?
I've received so many emails over the past 3 years from people's experiences with 1 Second Every Day. Some of them very private, some of them very heart wrenching. There's I remember a girl. She was in the hospital for suicide attempt, and she said she saw my TED Talks or recording 1 Second Every Day, and she talked about how it helped just wanted to thank me because it helped her turn her life around. There was an email I just got from a good friend saying that his girlfriend, her dog was diagnosed with cancer, and there wasn't a lot of time left. And so she started recording 1 Second Every Day for like the last month of her dog. And even though it's just a 30-second video, she says it's like the most, she's so grateful that she has those 30 seconds, and so I couldn't be more grateful for how people use the app or interpret the app and then end up sharing it with me. Sometimes so they'll send me their 1 Second Every Day video, but just for my eyes only, because they're not going to post it on Facebook, they're not going to post it anywhere. They showed it to their family or some loved ones, and for some reason they wanted to include me in that list. That's
cool.
You mentioned about interpreting your app also earlier. A friend of yours, or the guy who directed the feast, used it in a surprising way. Do you find that people are using the app in ways that you really didn't expect?
Yeah, I think I think it's still on there, but when I was writing like how the app, like what you can do with the app, like I think for the App Store description, one of the things there says you can have multiple timelines. You can record, not just your life, but if there's anything you want to catalog, essentially, you could use it for that. And I think I said something along the lines of, and I'm looking forward to seeing what interpretations you guys have for this, And so I kind of had a sense of people are going to do some things that I probably haven't immediately thought of. And some of my favorites have been their morning coffee. Every morning I know I have I first thing I need is my coffee. And so it was really interesting is because it's the cup of coffee in the shot, but the background is like always different. There's just this like, element. The coffee just kind of brings the whole year together of this video. And I thought that was just massively fascinating for, at least as a coffee drinker. There was a girl that recorded a second of what she wore every day. There's infinite interpretations, I think, to what you can do with it, especially with some of the stuff we're going to introduce soon. And I'm not surprised by it. I'm just like excited about it.
And at the end of your campaign, how did you celebrate?
I think I opened up I was saving like a bottle of champagne for like many years, and I thought this is the occasion. And yeah, we took me and my development team, got together. And then when I tried to pop it, and it's actually my second of the day, because one of the guys was recording it, and like the top just like fell to the ground instead of shooting out, and so it was totally flat. So we couldn't actually have it. No. But it was a good moment, and so we all laugh about it. But yeah, it was part celebration, but it was also like I probably got 5,000 emails saying, "Is this going to be done in time for New Year's? Because I want to start my video on New Year's Day." Oh, right. It was November 27th. Oh, wow. And so you celebrate for like an hour, and then we spent all Christmas and New Year's working nonstop to try to submit to the App Store, in time for everyone to have it. And we were able to submit it on December 27th, so we kind of made the deadline, but it wasn't approved by Apple until January 13th.
So that's what got it. How did you represent your launch on the App Store? What was your 1 second that day?
What is my second? I think it's just a shot. Oh, I remember. Yeah, it's a shot of it's two shots. So it's in the same shot. You see the iTunes store on that it's live, like on the App Store on my computer, and next to it is this bottle of whiskey of Maker's Mark that I bought on the road trip during my year off, that I hand dipped myself in the wax. I've been saving it for a special occasion, and so it's like, and you kind of see both things in the same shot. It was just like that was launch day.
I love the fact that you can remember that second.
Yeah,
that's incredibly cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what the app does.
Yeah.
Do you have your own kind of personal top 10 1 seconds of your past 5 years?
Oof.
That's 1 second every year. That's a different app.
Like a greatest hits.
5 seconds every 5 years. I think I think some of there's a couple of things popping out of the fact that I've had 5 years worth now. So for example, every year on my dad's birthday, it's the shot looks similar. It's just kind of like the cake's kind of on the lower, and he's kind of above it, and my family's around him. Right before they turn off the lights to sing him happy birthday. And one of the things we built and is coming out into the app soon is just the ability to arbitrarily just like mash a couple of moments together. And so for example, I can just kind of grab just my father's birthdays and mash them together and just kind of see in like 5 seconds, essentially, like my dad, in 5 seconds, just like 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. And there's stuff like that the connecting of some of these moments throughout the 5 years that I find to be bringing a lot of joy to me. Especially with people who have who pop up a lot in my life, or there was an ex-girlfriend storyline in there that is very sad. As far as my own personal life is concerned, but I think it's something that I mentioned in my TED Talk, or I hope I did. I probably forgot, which is I think you kind of it. With social networks like Facebook and stuff, people tend to post their highlights, but not their lowlights,
Yeah.
And with my 1 second every day video, I mean, I don't shy away from the bad days, and so, but I think I find that there's a lot of very powerful stuff for me to appreciate the good days, because I can reflect back on the bad days.
You did mention that in your TED talk, and I felt that was actually a very poignant part of it, in fact.
That it helped you process some of those horrible, tough moments.
Yeah, and as much as those moments are difficult to record, they make it possible for me that when something bad happens, what I see over and over again in my video now is that I go through bad times, but I get myself out of it, and I think that that's the important part. And so it makes it easier for when something bad happens, which a lot of bad things are going to happen in one's life. That you're conscious of the fact that even though this is really difficult, that you'll persevere.
I mean, as a creative artist, I mean, what keeps you motivated? I mean, do you have heroes for inspiration, or books you return to, or credo? How do you stay motivated?
A lot of TED Talks. I love. There's a couple of people that I'm really fond of. Kevin Kelly. He's
of Wired.
Of Wired. Yeah, he's who I want to be when I'm his age. I'd love to just be a carbon copy of him. He's just a very, just really smart, very conscious, really knows how to see, 20 years into the future and play out all the stuff that, play out all the pieces that are currently before us. And I'm just endlessly fascinated by everything he says and writes. And using him as who I aspire to be or whatever. I'm just addicted to learning.
Do you know if Kevin Kelly is familiar with 1 second every day?
Yes, he was one of the first people to do a 1 second every day. Actually, he was at TED the year that I spoke, and he went off on a vacation or on a trip to Asia for 2 months. And when he came back, he spent that time shooting seconds instead of photos, and put a little video together of his time. And that video, garnered a significant amount of attention. And, luckily for me, he's an awesome human and gave me credit every time he was asked about it.
Do you find most people use the app for particular, like, I'm going to go on this trip and I'm going to capture that, or are most people genuinely using it every day for years?
There's a couple of instances so most people tend to want to start their projects on their birthday or on New Year's. There's that as far as timing, but people use it. There's a lot of reasons why people start using it as well. So babies is probably the number one reason. If somebody's about to have a baby, they want to record 1 second of every day of their child growing up. The very first video of a guy who saw my TED Talk and did this for his son. It has like 10 million views, I think, online. It's like, it went crazy viral. And every parent who saw it is like, whoop, that's what I'm doing. Because I still get chills every time I see it, because you're literally going from the womb in second one to now he's walking 5 minutes in, and then it's just, the perspective you get on time is just like, time is a difficult thing to perceive, and there are aspects of the app that make it easier to really get a sense of the passage of time, and that's one of them. Traveling for sure is another huge case. People are going to go on some trip and they get the app. A lot of travel blogs, a lot of parenting blogs post about 1 second every day. Some of the stuff we're launching one of the things we're launching next month, it's called the freestyle timeline. And the freestyle timeline will essentially allow you to select as many seconds as you want from your trip to make a video that just encapsulates that trip, as opposed to like your life. And we're really pumped about getting that out there. Our beta testers who have been using it are, having having so much more fun, making all sorts of videos outside of their own personal timeline. Teachers have been an interesting, our app comes up a lot in teacher conferences, and teachers are using the app to kind of catalog a semester, and then they show the video to the parents who never really get a glimpse at like what it's like for their kid to be in that classroom. They find it to be massively powerful once they, at the end of the year, they don't really expect it. They're just, hey, I'm coming here to pick up my son for the last day of school. And then they're like, hey, by the way, check out this video of what your kids were doing for a semester in like 2 minutes. And it's just, it really strikes a chord with them. And so I think more and more teachers have been using it for that. And so there's a lot of interesting use cases for it outside of just like cataloging your own life.
We mentioned at the top of the show, Jon Favreau making his film Chef. Can you tell us how that came about and what that meant for your project?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a giant comic book nerd, and I grew up reading comic books, and I was an intern at comics when I was in college. That was my internship. I was an intern at Marvel, and this was back when Spider-Man 2, I think, was about to come out, and the first Hulk movie, and Marvel, right before I think their bankruptcy actually. And so, Jon Favreau, I've been a giant fan of Jon Favreau since Swingers, and he had a show on IFC called Dinner for Five, where he would just sit around a table and chat with like five, people from the Hollywood industry. And I learned so much about just like the way Hollywood works and the business of Hollywood through those little dinners that he would have and air. And I learned so much about filmmaking through it, and I in some respects I give him credit for podcasting. I feel like that was kind of like one of the first podcasts was just him chatting around a table with some guests. And so he directed Iron Man and Iron Man 2, and he did not direct Iron Man 3. But he was in the first two movies. He played like Iron Man's like driver, Happy
Hogan.
Happy Hogan, sorry.
Yeah.
And he
Happy Pappy's better.
I saw Iron Man 3 opening night with like my brother, and I thought, man, like I didn't even realize he was going to be in the movie, I think, at the time, and I thought, man, like what a class, like just like Jon Favreau to be such a class act that he would actually like still play that like low level character in a movie he's no longer directing.
Yes.
And I thought, like, that's not a usual thing in Hollywood. Yeah. And it just made me have even more respect for him. And I thought, why isn't anybody talking about this? No, why isn't anyone giving him credit for having this kind of class? And I was a bit frustrated by it enough that I opened up my Twitter on my phone and I started typing out a message to John saying, hey, like, John, thank you for having the class to return as Happy Hogan, even though you're not directing the movie, And I think I rewrote it like 30 times because, I'm an idiot. And eventually I just decided not to send it. I was like, this is crazy. He has got like millions of followers. He's not going to read this. I'm wasting my time. And so I fell asleep. On my couch or something. And I woke up at 6 a.m. and I saw my phone there. And I opened up my phone to look at the time to get to. It was like 6 a.m. I was getting to bed, and I saw that tweet that I didn't send. And I was like half asleep, and I thought, he's never going to see it. I just hit send, and I went to bed. And cut to me on the set of the movie like a couple of months later.
No way! Wow.
and one of the guys on the set, he's like, well, do you know how? He's like, we're just casually chatting. He's like, well, you know how he found out about your app, right? And I'm like, I have no idea. He goes, oh, like apparently you tweeted something really nice at him. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And then he like looked at your profile, and he's like, who's this guy? And he's like, 1 second every day. What's that? TED Talk. I'll click on that. And he saw the TED Talk, and that's how he got the idea to. After the TED Talk, he's like, I have an idea on how to include this into the movie I'm writing.
Yeah, and it's not just a little kind of mention. It's a pivotal part of the story.
He first they asked him for permission to write it in. Like they were like, would you be cool if we wrote this app into the movie? I was like, absolutely.
Would you be cool with that? Are you sure?
Yes, 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 yes. And then they said, okay, next step is we're going to tell John it's cool. And then John's going to, and then we're going to send you the parts of the script where it's relevant. And I was like, great. Sounds great. Cool. Anything you want. So then like a couple of weeks later, I got an email with some PDFs that have like my name, superimposed over every page so that if it leaks out, it's my fault.
Right.
And that's the moment when I read it and I thought, oh my God, this is like the moment of the movie is about my app. And so I was on set for a couple of days and it was just like the biggest thrill ever. And I was on the premiere and the funny thing about, when you ask about how this has played out, since the movie is, the movie is very much about social media as much as it is about food and about family being above all else. But the film largely revolves around Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Vine and me. And so most people think that it's a made up app. I find, they don't realize that it's like 1 second every day is real. They think that like it was just like a concoction,
a Hollywood invention.
Yeah. And just to play off the joke earlier in the movie where they're like, 1 second, what are you, that's silly, like what's that? Literally two days ago, I was hanging out with someone and she says something along the lines of, what's funny about your app? Like, have you seen Chef? And I'm like,
what?
I'm like, yes, I've seen Chef. He's like, they do, they do something similar where blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's my app. And she wouldn't believe me. Like, I'm like, rewatch the movie. Like, it's called 1 second every day. It's my app.
Wow.
So I find that to be often the case where people don't realize it's real.
I mean, are there competitors out there that are like, here's the 3 second everyday app?
There were, especially initially after the success of the Kickstarter, there were a lot of clones. There was like a guy who got funding like seed funding for like a 1 second every day app. Just after he saw my TED Talk, that he got the funding by showing my TED Talk. I was like, okay. But yeah, luckily, no one's really been able to. All of them have crashed and burned and not really had any traction. And we're still alive and kicking.
But you already own the 1 second thing. It's not like you made the 8-minute abs and then someone came along with the 7-minute abs and the 6-minute abs. You already own 1 second, unless someone comes along with the half a second every day.
I hope so. I mean, we have a thing in the app called Super Seconds where it can be a second and a half. And I get a lot of, especially in the past like 3 weeks, I've received a lot of messages from friends and stuff about, like, Instagram just released an app called Boomerang, which allows you to do 1 second video loops. But those are more animated GIFs. They don't have audio. They're different. But all the press calls it a 1 second. 1 second video, and so obviously I'll get the, oh my God, Cesar, they're stealing your idea, and I'm like, no, it's fine. When Apple Live Photos came out a month ago, when they said, when you take a photo now, there's basically going to be a second of video attached with it. It was just like, there's 1 second every day or whatever. And I was like, no, it's actually great because then they can use those. It's like one of the things with 1 second every day, which is people love taking photographs, but they're still slowly kind of getting comfortable with video, and so the live photos thing on the new iPhone 6s actually makes it so that, hey, you're still taking photos, but they happen to secretly have video behind them now, which you can plug into my app. So that's something we've started building upon.
So this has been, the whole project has been fabulously successful for you. What else have you got going on? What else is in the works at the moment?
So right now it's 1 second every day, nonstop. We have a lot of things in the pipeline. At least 5 things we're working on that are coming out. One of them is the freestyle timeline that I alluded to, and that's through a partnership with Chase that we've been working on for a while now. And we had a great partnership with the Android team at Google just a couple of months ago, where we built this like real time website where people who there were on June 28th, there was an extra second added to all the world clocks, a leap second. And so we built this, we let people submit what they did with their extra second to this like real time online gallery where you could watch what people were doing with their extra second on that day in real time. And so there's been a lot of cool partnerships that have come along. Right now, we're starting to build out the social kind of aspects of the app. Right now, the app is still very much a personal thing that you can choose or choose not to share out. But some of the stuff we're working on right now will basically allow you to, for example, swipe to a notification in the morning and kind of in 90 seconds, just kind of see what the 90 people that you follow were doing yesterday. Like in a minute and 30 seconds, it's like, hey, here's what my friends and family were up to, yesterday.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So there's a lot of little things like that I don't feel like I am in any way finished, with 1 second every day. And there's, I think at the end of the day, if 1 second every day is about telling your story, then there's a lot that we could do to make that, easier and better than what's available out there for you to do that right now.
And do you no longer feel the need to take a break, like Stefan Segmeister?
In a perfect world, I hope that in 4 years I can do it again. His whole thing about like that he talks about in his TED Talk that really like resonated with me. I was sitting at work and I saw his talk, and as soon as that talk ended, the first thing that I did was I grabbed the pen and paper and I started crunching numbers. Like, how much money would it take for me to be able to take a year off? And what he talks about is that he takes a year off every 7 years to just kind of reset creatively, and just he lets everybody in his studio take a year off so that everyone can go out and creatively do whatever they want. And he finds that all that stuff that everybody does for the next year ends up like directly, being the catalyst for all the creative work that they do for the next 7 years.
That's incredible. So I've seen the talk, and it was something that's interesting too, is that he it's about trying to avoid repetition.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things he talks about is that really struck a chord is, we spend, 20 to 25 years educating ourselves. And then we spend 40 years working, and then we retire. There are a lot of things that you cannot do when you're 65 years old. And so, he talks about mini retirements and the reason, essentially, he's like, instead of retiring at 65, I'll retire at 70 or 75, and I'll sprinkle those 5 years, 1 year, those 5 years into 1 year retirements throughout my working life. I thought that, obviously it's not an easy thing for anyone to do. But I hope in some capacity, maybe, hopefully, I can try to keep the 7 year rhythm going, as he inspired me in that talk. But who knows where I'll be in 4 years.
So, Cesar, just to bring it back to crowdfunding for just a moment, since this is ostensibly a show about crowdfunding after all. Your campaign was wildly successful, and we'd love to know what advice you could give anyone else out there who wants to start their own campaign. Could you give us your tips for crowdfunding success?
Yeah. So a couple of things that come to mind are, I remember a friend of mine once, he was going to crowdfund something, and he said, he called me for some advice, and he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to launch it like tomorrow or the day after. And he hadn't started. And I thought,
what a goofball.
Dude, like, yeah. And I just like, I laughed for a while, and then I tried to explain to him how massively difficult it is to put together a campaign. It reminds me a bit of there's something that always frustrates me was every year when a new iPhone comes out, they release somebody breaks it apart and says, well, okay, in parts, like the iPhone costs $120 in parts, right? Mm-hmm. And people will be like, oh my God, and they charge like $600 for it, but it's only $120 in parts. It's like, yeah, but like people had to design it and like build it. Like somebody didn't come with an instruction manual, and it didn't pop from nowhere to build the thing, And in the same way, I think some people think that, I find that, I'll just put together a Kickstarter campaign because it's an incredible amount of iteration that I had to go through with the Kickstarter campaign. And so the number one thing that I always recommend is that you really just have to spend hours and hours and hours looking at what everyone else did, both successful and not successful. Learn from what people, failed campaigns are a very important part of what I spent a lot of time looking at, was why, trying to figure out why these certain campaigns failed. And on the same time, what do I think what were the best things that successful campaigns did? And so, I took a lot of takeaways from all that research. And so, number one thing I would recommend is research. There's no such thing as too much research as far as figuring out what other people did. And second thing that comes to mind with it is, and it kind of correlates to the first one, which is the reward tiers, I think, are massively important, and people don't spend enough time thinking through the reward tiers. I know even with the amount of time that I spent on the reward tiers, I still ended up with regrets on them. But I think that, too easily do people resort to, oh, well, this tier will be T-shirts and, and stuff like that, where they don't really think through the logistical parts of that reward. If you are, getting $30 for sending a T-shirt to someone, it's actually a terrible idea. I mean, the amount of work that you're going to put into, getting those T-shirts made and sent out to the backers is not worth the extra bit of money you're getting from that tier. And so what I always recommend to friends of mine who are doing Kickstarters is to try to generate value out of very little work. And so what I mean by that is, for example, our $5 tier on 1 Second Every Day was, we'll put your name in the credits of the app forever. That credits of the app will always have everyone who is, $5 tier or above. And so essentially we're now getting 5 times more money. Instead of $1, we're getting 5. And the amount of work I needed to put in to basically, copy and paste and drag an Excel sheet over to a file on the app, very small amount of work, but 5 times more payoff potentially. And so there's always, and coming up with that stuff it's not a simple sit down and figure it out. I mean, it took a long time to figure out how do you generate value out of not more work. Otherwise you want to spend time focusing on the actual project and not focusing your time on sending T-shirts out. It's just not a good use of your time. Mm-hmm. And number 3, I think, would be the video. I think it's very important. I think not enough is said about the fact that you really need to make the first 10 to 20 seconds strong. You need to hook them. People tend to assume that if they start watching a video that they're going to watch the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And people tend to assume that I'll just put this at the end or whatever. It's just no, the people that stop watching the video just becomes, less and less and less over the course of any video. And very few platforms actually show you how long people spent on watching a video. And I find all the time that when I'm giving advice to somebody who just sends me their Kickstarter campaign for me to look at, that I'm like, guys, I'm not, by the time you guys get to the good stuff, I'm probably not watching it anymore, mm-hmm. and so I think it's important to start and close with the most enticing part of your entire idea. I think I started by saying something like, imagine a movie that includes every day of the rest of your life. Mm. And coming up with that line took forever because I didn't know how to describe the app quickly. I still have a hard time describing 1 Second Every Day quickly. And it took me a long time to hone in on something that captured what you're doing without going into detail. It looks like a calendar. You select your snippets and you mash them together. All that stuff are details. But I needed to find a way to have somebody be like, "What? Tell me more."
And did it take you a long time to come up with the name 1 Second Every Day, and did you try other alternatives?
I would say to friends, I'm recording 1 second every day for a year. I think that's how I usually would describe it. And so when it became time to come up with a name for it, and I don't know how it really came together, except that I do remember very specifically thinking, I wanted to I want it to be obvious what it is, so that it can't like be like ripped off, like if it's, so the funny thing about like if somebody create, the people who've created clones and they call it other things is that, what does it do? Well, it records a second every day. It's like, oh, see, like I thought, hey, if I just like call it what it is, then it becomes very difficult for somebody to do something similar and not be me already. So I did think through that, and then I did make a conscious decision to call it every day as opposed to every day. Like I use the which they both have different meanings if you separate the every and the day.
Right.
And I very much always thought of it as what I'm doing about showing my everyday life. And so sometimes I get a lot of flack about separating those 2 days, and I always I have like a canned response of like, this was a conscious decision. This is it's actually meant to be the definition of every day, because it's about everyday life. As opposed to the highlights of my life.
That's nice. It sets the tone.
I think there's a lot of virtue in being obvious about these things.
Yeah.
So, Cesar, before we wrap up, it's time for guest picks. So this is where you tell us about another crowdfunding campaign, whether it's past or present, that you think is worth taking a look at. So what have you got for us?
The app that came to mind is Dark Sky. It's a campaign I paid a lot of attention to because there weren't really that many campaigns out there that were going to be similar to mine. So it wasn't easy for me to find good examples of what I needed to do. And Dark Sky was one of the best ones because they not only did they build an incredible app that it's one of the few it's been on my home screen since for years.
Is this the weather app?
Correct.
I've got that app. Yeah, I use it all the time.
There you go. Yeah, that was a Kickstarter campaign.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, and at the time, they helped me too, because I learned the hard way that it's really difficult to deliver an app to someone. And I literally flew to Apple, and I had a meeting with Apple at their headquarters where I tried to make the case up the ladder that they needed to make it easy for developers to buy promo codes for themselves to deliver a promo code to users. And I said, a lot of more people are going to be, potentially kickstarting apps and stuff. And there needs to be. I mean, I'm like, you guys already do this with like Starbucks, where like you can they'll have these promo codes at Starbucks. So every week they have like a free app or something that they give away. And basically there was just too much red tape and they wouldn't allow it. And so Dark Sky wrote an incredible blog post about how they had to deliver the app to their backers. And it their advice and their replies to my emails was invaluable to me to figure out how I was going to do it, which didn't end up being pretty. But they, without their help, I think I would have been screwed.
Cesar, before we go, can you leave us with some words of wisdom? Is there a quote that inspires you, words to live by?
The quote that always comes to mind, that has helped guide me through a lot of moments of decision throughout my post high school life, is my guidance counselor. I think when I was like 16 or 17 in high school said, I don't know why, but he said it, and it got engraved into my skull in some capacity. But he said, live to regret the things you did, not the things you didn't do. Which I think at the time, I probably thought he said it, like it was his quote, but I'm sure that's like a famous quote. I'm sure I've seen it 1,000 times on memes and stuff. But it's such a simple rule, that whenever I find myself thinking, should I not do this? The chef tweet, being a good example.
Yeah.
The TED Talk, deciding at the very last minute, right before they were going to close the ability to audition, deciding, hey, live to regret the things you did, not the things you didn't do. I thought, okay, just you're not going to regret submitting a 1-minute video of you saying some stuff about why you're recording a second is meaningful to you.
Yeah.
I like at the time, to me, that seemed so silly. And I was embarrassed by the fact that I would try to get a TED talk out of it, you know? And, you know, but I just decided to try to work past that and just submit it, because then no matter what, I won't, like, I'll feel good that I tried.
Yes.
Even if I fail. And so, you know, that quote came to mind, and that's why I decided to submit to audition for TED, and my life has been massively altered because of it. And
wow.
so
big thanks to that guidance counselor.
Mr. Nardiello.
Good name.
Shout out.
He's a great man.
Cesar, we've really enjoyed talking to you on the show, and you've been generous with your insights and your story, and love that it's such a personal passion project that really kind of captured people's imagination, and it certainly caught ours.
It certainly has. Cesar, where can people go online to find out more about 1 Second Every Day?
Well, our website is onesecondeveryday.com. It's really old. We've been redesigning it for a couple of months now, and should be launching it hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we hope. My personal website is just cesarkuriyama.com. Also, I have not had a chance to update it in a long time, but it does have a lot of the work that I've done aside from 1 Second Every Day. And we keep a pretty we try to keep a pretty consistent feed of sharing out 1 Second Every Day videos on the Facebook page, the 1 Second Every Day Facebook page, and Twitter as well. That's about it.
People can, of course, go and find the app itself on the App Store.
Yes, iOS and Android. The Android version just got a total redesign, thanks to our partnership with the Android team at Google, and we're releasing a bunch of updates to 1 Second Every Day in the coming months. So, you know, feedback's always welcome. We read everything. Feel free to hate on it. We love to hear that too.
And at some point, you plan to release your past couple of years, or will you decide to keep that private?
No, yeah. So 3 years is online. Age 30, age 31, age 32. I have not published age 33, but I do intend to do it. I think I just needed some time to heal from some of the stuff in that particular video. Yeah.
And does your family use it?
Yeah, some members of my family, but not all. I mean, like my parents they're in their 70s. They don't know how to use the internet, let alone an iPhone.
If only they had a tech savvy son who could show them these things.
It's cool. I mean, they have no grasp of what I do with my life. They just trust me. They're like, well, if you say it is. I mean, they don't, you know, like TED Talk. They're like, okay, if you say it's a good thing, yeah, no, it's a good thing.
Who is this TED fellow?
Yeah, like I think I showed up in the newspaper once, and that they got really excited about. Right. They were like, oh my god.
Oh, that's cool.
It's for real now.
Yeah. So if it's in ink, I think that they appreciate it. But anything off a screen, they're just like, okay.
Try printing it out, Cesar.
Yeah, I'll start just printing out blogs and stuff.
Thank you, Cesar.
We wish you continued success with 1 Second Every Day.
Thank you so much, guys.
So you've been listening to CrowdScene, the show about successful crowdfunding campaigns and the people who make them happen. Big thanks from both of us to our guest, Cesar Kuriyama, for his time and insights in this episode. To find out more about Cesar, visit onesecondeveryday.com. And to get in touch or hear about upcoming guests on this show, please follow CrowdScene on Twitter at CrowdSceneShow. We hope you enjoy the podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, writing a good review on iTunes helps us reach more listeners. Thanks. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to CrowdScene on iTunes or any other podcast app. Pete and I want to say thank you as always to singer-songwriter Kim Bookbinder for the theme music for CrowdScene. To find out more about Kim, please check out kimbookbinder.com. Special thanks to our friend Jim Fowler and his expert ears. For more on Jim, visit jimfowlermusic.com. So until next episode, thanks for listening.
Crowd scene, gonna kick it with Pete and Mike. Crowd scene, interviews behind the hype. Crowd scene, crowd scene. What do you do? What do you say to make crowdfunding go your way? Crowd scene, crowd scene.
That's what I call epic.